Well, all right, here we are once again back at the kitchen table. I am Pastor B, kitchen table. Normally I'm in the studio, but I'm not in the studio today. I'm here literally at my own kitchen table. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I can't wait to talk to you today. All this month, I've been dealing with the idea of Black family issues. All of our families have issues, but there's certain things that are pertinent to the Black family. And today, I'm so glad to have as our guest one of the most prominent physicians in the whole state of Texas, Dr. Dwayne Williams. Dr. Williams, when you say hello to the kitchen table audience.
Hello, kitchen table. It is my pleasure to be with you, and certainly my pleasure to share this time with Dr. Hamilton, with Reverend Hamilton.
Amen, amen. Dr. Williams, will you first just tell us, how long have you been a physician?
Well, Reverend, it's now been, believe it or not, I'm in my 31st year now. I started in 1991 in private practice and have been in this area in Sugar Land for the duration of my practice. So I'm a 30-year plus physician here at this time.
Wow. So, Doc, did you always want to be a physician?
I didn't always want to be a physician, but it kind of happened interestingly. I always wanted to be a baseball player, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. My dad was a huge Los Angeles Dodger and Jackie Robinson fan. And as a kid, I grew up, obviously just being amazed by baseball. And I wanted to play baseball up until I was in high school, and I was looking for a job as a sophomore. And the local hospital had a job opening for someone that wanted to be a nursing assistant / orderly. And I applied for it and got it. And when I got the job, I was just immediately more interested in the medical field. I was amazed by how the doctors were so knowledgeable and they were able to help people. I saw people who needed help in all kinds of ways, illnesses that they needed treatment, that the doctors were able to help them, and it really made an impact on me. And certainly in where I grew up, which is in East Texas, we didn't see really any Black doctors at all. I certainly felt like that was something that I thought I could contribute with, and from that point on, I actually started becoming very interested in medicine. And from my sophomore year on, I had most of my classes in high school geared toward medical practice, just in case I wasn't going to be a professional baseball player.
Wow, Doc, what a story. What a journey, Doc. That is great. Doc, as I said earlier, you're one of the most prominent physicians around. Everyone knows you, come to you, and they're always talking about certainly your knowledge and also your commitment to making sure that you deal and relate rightly to all of your patients. And so with that being said, I want to talk just for a moment, Doc, about we as people of color. What are some dominant medical issues that we face?
Certainly. Well, first of all, let me thank you so much for what you just said, and I appreciate it. And it's always my pleasure to work with our community for sure. So thank you so much for what you just said. And I'll tell you, this is another thing that's near and dear to my heart, the types of medical issues that affect us. There are numerous ones that really stand out in the Black community. Number one, I'd have to say right now, Reverend, is heart disease. Heart disease is a huge killer of Americans. It's especially a huge killer of Black Americans. We have found that heart disease, even as early as ages 18 to 49 in African Americans, we're twice as likely as our Caucasian counterparts to die of heart disease. There are a number of reasons for that. Obviously, we know that there can be some genetics involved as far as family history of heart disease. But a big thing that we're really seeing, Reverend, right now is the economic inequality of things between races is really becoming probably more pronounced than less pronounced. And therefore, we seem to have less access, or at least timely access, to medical services than maybe some other races. So heart disease is still the number one killer of all Americans, and it certainly is the number one killer of Black Americans.
Wow. So you're saying that the economics of it also impacts our physical well-being?
Absolutely it does. And as much as we'd like to say that the gap economically has narrowed, it has in fact, if you look at some of the recent reports, has not narrowed. In fact, it is widening. And it's created even more of a disparity between what you see on medical outcomes from not only heart disease, but a number of other medical conditions as well. Most notably in this day and time, COVID, which I'll mention a little bit later. But yes, economic inequality has reared its head very much so in what we would call medical outcomes.
Oh my goodness. Just being able to have the availability of the services and things like that.
Absolutely. And let me say this, the Affordable Care Act of 2010 that President Obama pushed and got through has improved access to a degree, but the disparity still exists.
Still exists, yes. Yes, sir. What pertinent medical situations do you see, issues that you see that's prevalent for Black males and Black females?
Certainly. I think when we start to look at the different things that affect us as African Americans, I will include cancer as being a big one. We see this all the time, Reverend, unfortunately, where we get Black men in who are at advanced stages of prostate cancer because they never were evaluated for prostate cancer, never went to get evaluated for one thing. And then sometimes, unfortunately, and this is something that just really is really bad. Sometimes they'll go to certain doctors and their prostates don't get checked. And therefore you miss treating things early that you could have good outcomes on. So prostate cancer, which is the #2 cancer killer among men, lung cancer is the #1 killer of men and women of all races, but prostate cancer is the #2 cause of cancer death in men, breast cancer being the #2 killer in women. But prostate cancer is still on the rise, and we think that again has its roots in a lot of access. Some gentlemen do not go to the doctor on a regular basis, and then some, even though they may go, don't get those kind of things checked. So men, we're really advising if you're anywhere from your mid-30s on, that you go in and you get annual checks for your prostate, among other things. Same thing holds for women with breast cancer. Breast cancer is the #2 cause of women's death across the United States. It is a disease that is highly curative if you get in early enough and it's detected early enough. So we're recommending all women get their mammograms starting usually around the mid-30s, and depend upon your individual family risk, getting it yearly or every other year. But those things are very important because those cancers are killing a huge percentage of our African American population.
Doc, I've got some questions for you. My first question is, what objections do you get from men from going to getting a regular colonoscopy or having their prostate checked?
Absolutely, Reverend. Thank you for bringing up the colonoscopy. That was the other thing. We want to make sure that colonoscopies get done. The age that colonoscopies are now recommended has actually decreased from age 50 to 45 with people that are at normal risk. For people who have individual family histories of colon cancer, we're even recommending having them as early as the 40s. Some of you may remember Chadwick Boseman, the actor that obviously died a few years ago. If we could have had early detection there, he's probably would still be alive. So we're seeing that the importance of colonoscopy is very important. So the things that I get to answer that question, Rev, the things that I get objections from men is, sometimes it's just that old thing of guys feeling like, that area shouldn't be looked at or that area shouldn't be touched. I think that it's a thing that some of them have, grown up with that type of feeling that, that's not an area you want to ever have touched or whatnot. They're scared, they're concerned about it hurting or it being painful. They hear things from friends or they see things on the internet. And quite frankly, some of them, it is one of those things where it's just taboo. They think it's taboo to actually, have someone take a finger and place it there to check their prostates. And so unfortunately, many of them go a lifetime and never have a prostate check.
That's so unfortunate. Wow.
Yes, it's very, 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 very unfortunate.
I like what you said, it's taboo. It's kind of mythic, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes. Yes. You got a lot of folks, feel like, you're questioning their sexuality if you do that, or, they shouldn't have it done because of that. But all kinds of taboo things they think in regards to that.
Dr. Williams, have you been able to discover what is the origin of cancer?
We don't. Well, let me say this. We don't know definitively, but one of the things that we do seem to feel like is that there can be a strong hereditary predisposition to cancer. And that sometimes is something that can be in the person's genes, okay? But there also can be the situation where it has nothing to do with their genes. There may be at some point a change up in a person's DNA that makes them more susceptible to certain kinds of cancers. And then we think there's also situations where a person's immune system can sort of backfire, if you would. In other words, a person's immune system can attack itself. And so sometimes the body makes itself more susceptible, we think, to cancer. The debate is still on, and there's still a lot of research to do, and then we think it may be a combination of all those things.
Can you say a word about diet? What about it pertains to us and our diets?
Sure, absolutely, Reverend. You're right on things. I talked about heart disease being the #1 killer of Americans, and particularly us as African Americans, and hypertension being one of the secondary issues that tends to actually go into heart disease. But our diets are very important in controlling hypertension and thus controlling things such as diabetes, which we'll mention a little bit later here too, diabetes and heart disease. So diets that are what we will call Mediterranean diets, which are diets which are high in vegetables, fruit, nuts, chicken and fish, water, okay, low in things like saturated fats, high carb foods, okay, red meats. And it's not to say all red meats are bad for you. Some red meats are okay, just in certain portions. Okay, we think that those are the best types of diet. It is true that what you do get in your body has a huge impact on how that body reacts. This is why we feel like there has been an increased incidence in diabetes in African Americans. Our diet in general, now not just saying all of us, but in general, has been a diet that has been sort of laden with high fat foods, with a lot of fast foods, a lot of foods high in sugar, a lot of pastries, a lot of sweets and things. And so those diets tend to make one more sensitive to having high blood pressure and diabetes. And let me say this in regards to diabetes. Diabetes is probably the one disease that really incorporates a whole lot of the things in it that really create problems with African Americans. It is said that diabetes is basically the same thing as having heart disease. So anybody that has diabetes, though they may say, listen, I don't have heart disease at all. In general, we are feeling the connection between diabetes and heart disease is so great that if one has diabetes, if they don't already have heart disease, at some point they will be more apt to have heart disease if that diabetes isn't brought under control.
Wow.
So diabetes is huge. And so diet is a huge part of diabetes. Diet and exercise.
Wow.
And Rev, I will say this in regards to exercise. A lot of folks feel that, when you talk about exercise, you got to be in a gym for 2 hours, 3-4 times a week. And that's not true. If a person can get 150 minutes a week of a moderate exercise routine, that could be walking, that could be on a treadmill, that could be on a bike, that could be an assortment of other sports. If you like to play golf, if you like to play tennis, if you like to play basketball, or whatnot, any combination of things that can give you 150 minutes a week is considered adequate exercise. So if you just extrapolate that, if you did 30 minutes 5 days a week, there's your 150 minutes right there. Or if you did 50 minutes 3 days a week. Okay, so we're not asking you to be in a gym, 2 hours, 3-4 times a week, which that's hard in probably anybody's schedule. But if you can get moderate exercise and eat a diet that's more Mediterranean-like, okay, those are the best types of meals and exercise plans to do.
Doctor, can you speak a little more about hypertension?
Sure. Hypertension is a huge risk factor for heart disease. 1 in 3 African Americans suffer from hypertension. I want you to just think about just that fact. One
Mm,
in three. 1 in 3 of us has hypertension. Okay. Not only is it significant in that role, but what we found out is that in the African American, we tend to see hypertension earlier in life than other races.
mm,
Hypertension is the start, unfortunately, of heart disease. Hypertension creates increased pressure on the heart, thus making your heart have to work harder to get blood through your system to feed your vital organs. The harder it is to get blood and oxygen around, the more the body struggles and the more the body, in essence, can wear down. So hypertension or high blood pressure is usually the start of severe vascular disease, which over time can
mm.
lead to the heart failing. Not only the heart failing, but also the kidneys failing, and then also the lungs failing. So hypertension is a huge thing in our community. And we think the things that you mentioned, Reverend Hamilton, regarding diet and the other things that I mentioned regarding exercise are really super incredible for actually controlling hypertension. We must decrease our obesity rate, which we are 3 to 4 times more apt to be obese than our Caucasian counterparts. So obesity plays a huge role with hypertension. You know, there seems to be a lot more acceptance of this so-called being fat, PHAT, not
Yeah,
just fat, FAT, but PHAT is kind of glamorized in some instances, but there's really nothing glamorous about it. We
yeah.
really feel that we really feel that it is a health risk, and we also feel that the old notion that children who are obese will just quote unquote grow out of it, and we know that doesn't happen because bad eating habits start at those young ages. So you want to control diet and you want to control exercise even in children, because if we control it in children, the chances of them developing hypertension and heart disease and diabetes down the road is much, much less.
Wow, that is so timely what you're saying about the perception of that to be fat, or I know the cultural term we're talking about. In other words, your body, or in the age of body acceptance and things like that. But
Yes, yes, sir.
it's very unhealthy, and that you're really setting yourself up for failure, even our children. So, Doc,
Yeah,
explain to me,
absolutely.
explain to us BMI, body mass index.
Sure, sure. So BMI is a measure of your height versus your weight. So it's sort of
Mm,
the thing that's used in a lot of actuarial. So it's called the body mass index. So it's
mm,
actually an index that looks at the square centimeters in your body versus the kilogram of weight in your body. And so there is a normal table set up that says a body mass index of 19 to 25 is considered normal. 26 to 30 is considered overweight, and anything over 30 is considered obese. And we sort of threw in the thing that if it's over 35, it's considered morbidly obese. Now, the
mm-hmm,
only difference between that obese and being morbidly obese is that we think the risk of things like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, things go up from obesity to morbid obesity. So that's what's used as a general measure of whether a person is within where they should be as far as a weight thing, because they're all of us are a little different, different heights or different builds and whatnot. So the BMI was kind of something, and it's not an exact thing, by the way, Reverend. In other words, you can't just absolutely say just because a person is this particular BMI that they're right where they should be or not. But it's probably as close as we have. And again, as I say, a lot of the actuarials look at it, the insurances look at it,
mm,
Medicare looks at it. It's one of the things that we as doctors have to turn in to Medicare on any of our patients that we see. That goes into the Medicare information vault is BMI. So BMI
mm.
is a measure of whether weight is appropriate to the height or body build, but it can't take into other factors. There's sometimes, as I always say, 190 pounds may not be 190 pounds, may not be 190 pounds. So 190 pounds can look different along many different people. Their bodies
Right.
are made a little differently depending upon genetics and different things like that. But body mass index is a way of, at least in some way, knowing where you stand on the spectrum. Is it very exact? Probably not. And for us as African Americans, which we tend to have a little different bone structure, we have a little thicker bone mass than most races. So it's not inexact. And I will sometimes even tell our patients that you can actually probably take and add 10% to any weight on there and then adjust the scales a little bit, because it's, for us, it may be a little bit on the thinner side, those numbers that they give. But at least it gives us sort of an indication somewhat of where we are. Let's say, for instance, if I have someone in whose BMI is 26 or 27. Now, remember what I was saying, 19 to 25 is normal, 26 to 30 is overweight. You know what? I may not be concerned about that 26 being overweight, because that 26 altogether may really be more like a 25, just taking into account that person's genetics, that person's body build, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, you can imagine. So, Rev, we see a lot of football and baseball players and basketball players. Their builds are a little different from the average person. Right. So you have to sort of count into that sometimes. It doesn't tell you everything, but it's a measure at least to be able to know what neighborhood you should be in.
Yeah. Doc, obviously you see a lot of people of color from all around, not just the city, but probably around the world, that come to you. Yes, and so with you caring for so many, what has been your joy and what has been your pain as a physician?
Well, that's a great question. Boy, you're asking some really good ones. I'll tell you, my joy, Rev, is seeing a person who needs help, who's been very critically ill. And we've even had a few cases where a person has gone into cardiac arrest or been very sick from severe diseases, and have been able to recover and return to a full life. That's probably the biggest joy, that to see someone who was very ill and very sick be able to get well and resume a normal life and a normal productive life with good quality. Quality of life is good. Those are the kind of things that I think are so much a joy. The things that hurt, Rev, is that call that I'll sometimes get that a person has died despite us vigorously trying to help and trying to treat their disorders, but to hear despite that they have succumbed to whatever illness it was. It's one that it hurts every day. I mean, I can sometimes come in, and that's the call I have when I first walk in. And though I have to look normal when I go into the next room, it still bothers me. It hurts. And I feel for those families of whoever that was that died. So I think losing someone is probably the thing that probably hurts the most.
Wow, Doc. Hey, man, I understand it. Just from a pastor, I know what you're talking about. It stays. It's in you. It's in you. That you grieve with those who are grieving. You certainly do.
Yes, absolutely do.
Now, there's someone watching online right now, and they're wondering, how do I determine if I have the right doctor?
Sure. Well, I think one thing that I would look at is does the doctor take time to listen to what you're saying and what your concerns are? And, one of the things that, I hate this in one sense, but, medicine, the way they're trying to push it in some sense, is almost like, kind of going down the assembly line, just here, in, out. And I think that really is a disservice to patients. And Rev, I probably get in trouble the most by them saying, "Hey, doctor, you're running behind. Hey, doc, Harry." And part of that is I really try to take time to really know what's going on. And sometimes that isn't always in a 10 or 15 minute slot to know what's really going on. So I always say, judge a doc by if they will listen to you, if they're really into what your concerns are, and addressing those concerns. And I think if you have a feeling that you went in and the doctor didn't really hear anything you said, they just kind of rushed you through and rushed you out, I think that's not a good doctor to have. I think you want to feel like you're able to come in, go through what you need to go through with the doctor, feel that the doctor is hearing and addressing those issues, and then acting on those issues. And if you get that feeling that your doctor is doing that, that's probably the right doc for you. I so often will get people who will come in and we'll kind of start going over things that I thought probably would have been already addressed before on their previous doctors, and it hadn't been, and no time had actually been spent discussing that. Even things like colonoscopies and prostate exams and things like so. And so you know that that person hadn't been really adequately served or serviced in regards to their medical needs. So I think my number one thing to say is to make sure that a doctor is going to listen to you.
Yeah, Doc. Yeah, and you do a great job of that for sure, even communicating.
Appreciate that, Ray.
Doc, I'm going to give you the extra floor for the last one here. And the last one is this. There are people who are watching and they may feel as if everything Dr. Williams has said, I violated. I have a bad diet. I got a bad family history. I have hypertension. I've got diabetes. I don't exercise. And I know that I'm overweight. And I've been told this before, but I just feel like I just can't change. What's your counsel to that patient, Doctor?
Sure, I'll tell that person that they are not by themselves. We hear that quite a bit. And there's a thing that, that says, hey, just start somewhere. If you just start somewhere, that's better enough. And I mean, it can be something very small to start doing. A big one is exercise. If you can't do anything else, say, you know what, let me every day, I'm just going to get out here and put some sneakers on, and I'm just going to look at my watch and say, okay, in so many minutes, 30 minutes, I'm going to stop walking, but I'm just going to walk and just start doing it. It doesn't have to be fast. It can be a leisure rate, but just start doing it. Just start. And if you just start and you keep doing it, it will become to you easier and easier, and your body will adapt, and it will itself make you want to do a little bit more. Now, what we tell patients is generally what we'd like to see with walking eventually is we'd like to see you walk a 15-minute or less mile. So if you're walking 1 mile, I'd like to see that in 15 minutes. 2 miles, 30 minutes or less. 3 miles, 45 minutes or less. That's a goal to get to, but it's not where you have to start. Just start. You may be walking a leisure mile that takes 30 minutes, but that's okay. Just start. Just start. Another good start point is whatever you're eating from a diet standpoint, cut it in half. Just cut it in half. Okay? Not necessarily that you've changed what you're eating initially, but whatever you eat, just cut that in half. Start there. Once you then start cutting in half, then you can start to go, okay, well, listen, you know what? I know I don't need this kind of food, that kind of food, this kind of food. I need to be eating more vegetables, need to be eating more fruit, more nuts, more chicken, more fish, okay, drinking more water. And then you can start to fine tune that. But just to start with, just start a little bit of walking, cut whatever you're getting in half, whatever that amount is, cut it in half. And that's always a great point to do, is just cut it in half and start. And you'll see the body adapts over time. Yes, it'll be a little rocky at first because your body's used to you eating those, really bad ways. But if you just start, the body will then adjust to it. And then at that point, again, you can start fine tuning what you're getting in that diet.
Wow, Doc, that is so practical, so relevant, and so necessary. Dr. Williams, I thank you so much. There's someone right now that's saying, I need to get in to see Dr. Williams. Where is he located? Doc, how can they contact you about making an appointment?
Absolutely. We're here in Sugar Land, Texas. Our phone number is 281-238-3100. It is our pleasure, and I'll tell you what, we would love seeing you, and we would love to contribute to you being healthier and having a better quality of life. I think the bottom line to all the disorders that we talked about was, getting in front of those things and practicing preventative care. Preventing illness is a lot easier to treat a lot easier to deal with than treating it. So if we can stay preventative in our treatment, we will be better.
Amen. Amen. Kitchen table audience, you've heard it. You've heard from a physician over 30 years being a physician. And you didn't have to pay a copay. You didn't need insurance or anything. He brought it to you right here. He came to the table and told us the nuts and bolts of what we need to live a healthy life. We were able to reverse some patterns of the past and live a healthy life. And so we want to thank Dr. Williams for coming to the kitchen table. Share this with your mother, your father, your uncles, your auntie, all your family and friends. Let them know you heard it right here at the kitchen table. And I'll see you next Friday right here at Pastor B's kitchen table. God bless you and keep you.